Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we are back on that news grind. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to yesterday's heartfelt rant on the future of gaming. If you missed it, that's linked in the description down below for you to check out. But there was a lot of feedback, a lot of conversation there. All of it was very kind, good, well-reasoned. So I do appreciate that so much. As I said, though, today we're back on that news grind because we're taking a look at the Xbox and Activision deal, which has so many tendrils and it continues to develop, and there's always something new to talk about. So we're going to continue to track it because that is our duty. With that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're looking for more Xbox-focused conversations, consider subscribing because we got that on the way. Of course, we got reviews. We're working on Dying Light 2. I don't know if I announced that yet, but we are working on a Dying Light 2 review, have that game mighty early, so we're playing through that. We have a couple other projects underway for the Patreon, which will then go live to the public later on, so much exciting stuff on top of Retro Rebound that I just can't wait to show all of you, so consider joining up if you have yet to. But today, we're getting into Call of Duty exclusivity again because there's been another development on that front, a much more telling development from trusted sources like Jason Schreier. We're also going to talk about the optimism within Activision since the acquisition by Xbox. And last but not least, we're also going to be talking about a brand new game from Blizzard that's a new IP. And if we know anything about Xbox acquiring studios that are working on new IP, Starfield and Redfall, this will likely end up being an exclusive. So we got to look into it and talk about what this is. Now, let's get into it, starting off with the first headline from Bloomberg, which is titled, Activision's next 3 Call of Duty games will be on PlayStation and Xbox. Activision Blizzard, which is being bought by Microsoft, will release at least the next 3 games in its hit Call of Duty franchise on PlayStation, as well as its new owners, Xbox. Before news of the $69 billion acquisition broke last week, Activision had already committed to make the next few Call of Duty games available on Sony's console, according to 4 people with knowledge of the deal speaking anonymously because they were not authorized to speak to the press. That includes this year's Call of Duty, expected to be a new entry in the popular Modern Warfare subseries developed by Infinity Ward, and the following game, which is in development at Treyarch, both Activision-owned studios. The deal also includes a planned new iteration of Call of Duty Warzone, the lucrative free-to-play game that was released in 2020. For at least the next 2 years, Microsoft is committed to releasing Call of Duty on PlayStation, the people said. Neither Sony nor Activision responded to requests for comment. Microsoft declined to comment. Plans are hazier for the Call of Duty games further out, said the people familiar with the matter. Microsoft said it expects the Activision to close sometime in the next 6 to 18 months, after which it will be able to decide whether to continue releasing Call of Duty games on PlayStation. Top employees at Activision have also discussed spacing out Call of Duty releases rather than putting them out every year, Bloomberg has reported. Okay, so this is super interesting because last we heard from Phil Spencer, he got off the phone with Sony and he was like, we plan to honor these agreements. Just like with Bethesda, we plan to honor these agreements that are in place contractually speaking. This is stuff like Ghostwire Tokyo, Deathloop. We're not going to buy out these contracts. We're going to honor them. And it looks like that was the conversation that PlayStation was having. Like, hey, you can't just rip these third-party games off our platform. There was a contract and agreement in place that we expect you to abide by, which it looks like Xbox is planning to do so. What I find so interesting is after 2 mainline Call of Duty games, the last Call of Duty game that Schreier here is reporting that will hit PlayStation before things get hazy is a Warzone game. Why is this so important to note? If you remember my prediction, not only when this deal was announced, I mentioned Warzone, but also when we talked about Phil Spencer's updated comments, I said again and again that Warzone is going to be the little drip feed there that's available on all platforms, and then the actual Call of Duty series will be put onto Xbox. I know it's extremely hard to predict what this industry is going to look like in the terms of a Call of Duty release 3 years from now. Right? There's so much that can change between then and now on even how we consume games. What's the most popular avenue? Is it Game Pass? Is it digital downloads, physical copies? Where does Microsoft benefit the most? But the reality is that probably by the second Call of Duty in this cycle here, where it will be releasing on PlayStation, Xbox will have owned Activision at that point in time, provided, again, everything goes through hunky-dory. If that happens, here's the reality that a lot of people aren't talking about, including myself, is that let's say Xbox says, we're going to keep all these Call of Duty games on PlayStation for the indefinite future. This still benefits Xbox tremendously on a business front because for every copy sold on a PlayStation console, Xbox gets a 70% cut because they own Activision. So for every $10 made, Xbox gets 7 and PlayStation gets 3. So even if they're selling it on their platform, it still helps Xbox quite a bit. So there's a lot of avenues and options that are open. And if there's one little takeaway that we can make from the Bethesda acquisition that was said at the roundtable between Xbox and Bethesda, it's that those two companies didn't talk really at all about any plans because they said legally we could not. So as of this moment in time, it's probably a small team at Microsoft, like Phil's team, has an internal idea of what they right now want to do with Call of Duty. Maybe Activision has their own ideas. And once this deal is done and they come together as one, they can then have a true discussion on what they will actually do with it. So there's tremendous potential here for Xbox. Again, I think they're going to wield this as a cudgel and try to beat PlayStation over the head to the point of putting Game Pass on PlayStation. Because let's say we're talking 18 months from now, I would imagine Xbox will have made another acquisition by that point in time. I don't think they're going to do anything between now and whenever that deal with Activision is finalized, but I also don't think it's going to take and I could be wrong here, the maximum 18 months. So I do feel like they will have another acquisition by then, and that will only strengthen Game Pass with everything that's already there, and it will only be used again to beat PlayStation over the head until they say, okay, we'll put the app on here, a specially curated one that has just the Xbox first-party offerings, because that's what Xbox wants. Like, word on the street. You can take it or leave it, whatever you want to do. Word on the street, Xbox is doing these deals because they want to get Game Pass onto other systems, most notably PlayStation. So do with that what you will. Next headline comes from Bloomberg as well. Activision employees say they're optimistic about acquisition by Microsoft. Activision Blizzard employees have had a range of differing and sometimes conflicting emotional responses to the news this week that their company will be purchased by Microsoft for $69 billion. There's been trepidation about potential layoffs, optimism about Microsoft's recent history of buying game companies and them leaving them alone, as well as determination to fight for better wages and more worker protection. But above all, more than a dozen employees across Activision Blizzard's divisions say that they're relieved that anything has actually happened that could fundamentally change the company's course. Many people have been worried that the status quo would remain intact, and that would be unacceptable. Employees from Activision Blizzard's various studios, from Treyarch in Santa Monica, California, to Blizzard in Irvine and King in Stockholm, said they expect Phil Spencer, who was promoted to CEO of Microsoft Gaming, to be a stronger leader than Kotick. Several pointed to Microsoft's successful acquisition of the independent studios, such as Double Fine Productions and Obsidian Entertainment, which have been mostly allowed to operate autonomously. Others said that they were cautiously optimistic, but also upset that Kotick would still be in charge for at least the next 6 months. Microsoft said it expects the deal to close in the next fiscal year, which runs from July 2022 through June 2023. The other angle of this deal, as I said, there's a lot of tendrils here. Like, it's not just about the games and the exclusivity, kind of like Bethesda, and you just walk away from the conversation. Like, this is a developing thing where we're now seeing a union being formed within Raven Software, and Activision is battling back, saying, like, you need everyone in Raven Software to be the union, not just the 34 or so QA testers. So this is a big internal battle, and Microsoft's coming in as the cleanup crew. This is going to be, as I said when this deal was announced, their biggest test yet, because it is a people issue. And no matter how many amazing games you make, no matter how many big games you make, I think Activision, we can speak for them. They make Call of Duty, which I know here as a very hardcore gaming channel, if you will, we talk about a lot of like JRPGs, these niche kind of games, all that cool stuff, right? I get that, but like Call of Duty is dominant and impressive. And even then, Activision has their skeletons in their closet. And for a lot of folks, the games don't matter if the people are unhappy. And we're seeing these stories all over the place. We saw it recently with TT Games, who's releasing the phenomenal looking Lego Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga. But there's been apparently crunch since 2005 and like a lot of poor employee treatment there. So the industry's in a active cleanup. Xbox can't always be the hero, but if they can lead by example and say, like, we brought in Activision, who was pretty openly being exposed as one of the worst places to work in this industry, and we can clean that up, make it a great place to come and work, then I again think that you're going to start to see companies line up. Like, I'm not advocating for it, but I think Ubisoft would be one obvious candidate. Like, this is one that you look at and go, well, they're kind of suffering from the same thing as Activision. Maybe a little less worse, but do we just not know as much as what was happening internally compared to Activision? But Ubisoft is immediately what comes to mind because they were a rumor for a while before this Activision acquisition. So I do wonder about them. And of course, that will be the real force of change for Microsoft because they came in at the perfect time to really look like, let's be real here, heroes if they can fix Activision. So this will also be very telling. Now, last but not least, let's talk about this survival game that Blizzard's working on because I found this quite interesting. So they posted on their own blog, Create a New Universe with Us. Blizzard is embarking on our next quest. We are going on a journey to a whole new universe, home to a brand new survival game for PC and console, singular. A place full of heroes we have yet to meet, stories yet to be told, and adventures yet to be lived. A vast realm of possibility waiting to be explored. Every story needs a teller, and every world needs builders. What if that could be you? For 30 years, Blizzard has been creating universes for millions of players around the globe. This requires a diverse team of developers willing to lend their voice, to listen, and to be heard. That is our mission. Gee, I wonder why they're saying that. Do you like survival games? Do you want to join a collaborative team of experienced developers at the early stage of a new project in a new world and help write the next chapter in Blizzard's story? This is your call to adventure. Will you answer it? So not much details on this other than it is a survival game and it's going to PC and console. Not consoles, console. Now, of course, I can't help but read this and think like, okay, this is probably an Xbox exclusive. We're looking at a survival game here, so it's likely multiplayer, which again would make sense for Xbox. They can say what they want, but they want multiplayer games for Game Pass because it makes Game Pass very easy to push if you can tell your buddy that he can play this game for very cheap on the service, and it gets 2 signups just like that in a snap. So they want multiplayer games. Survival makes sense. That's what pushes that type of service like Game Pass. Overall, I find it kind of surprising because I look at some of the IP that Blizzard has now, like, you know, Diablo, which is just kind of lingering around, or Overwatch, which was a Game of the Year winner and one of my very favorite first-person shooters ever, to something that's not as respected, to say the least. I feel like there's a lot of work to do on their current IP before they go off and do something new, but I understand, again, as I said with the employee stuff, this is a people thing, and I think a lot of them want to just kick the dirt off their feet and let's move on to the next new thing and start a new chapter here at Blizzard. So I respect this initiative because they're also taking care of the other franchises they've built with Overwatch 2. There is Diablo 4. There are things happening at Blizzard for these other IP that do matter to a lot of people. Whether people like them or not, a la Overwatch 2, remains to be seen, but still, at least they're doing something with the license. I'm talking about you, Xbox, with Fallout, if you couldn't tell. Do something with it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I really have to say about this news here. Just some pretty interesting stuff across the board. We're going to see how all of it develops, but I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this in the comments down below, so please do fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all of the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.